Okay, so good morning. Today we begin the 13th and I believe final chapter, yes, 13th and final chapter of Ketubot. This chapter it's interesting. The structure of this chapter is different from other chapters in that we're going to begin by referencing two judges that issued certain decisions, and then we'll go through their decisions. Now, a number of these decisions are related to Ketubot, to the contract that is signed between a husband to a wife to take care of her if they get divorced or if he passes away. So, but not all of them. And so as a result, even though not all of them will deal with it, we're going to get into some interesting stuff. And we will also, today, we will be talking about the interesting question of bribery, of taking a bribe, of a judge taking a bribe. Obviously, that's not a good thing because you're not allowed to. But what is the reason, or that you can't take a bribe, even if the payment is in order to actually rule correctly? Let's say I tell you that I want you to judge this case correctly. Yes, I'm involved in the case, but I want you to judge it correctly, and I want to pay you to make sure that you judge it correctly. That is also going to be problematic. So we'll see all that today. So we're going to begin by referencing judges, and that's going to get us into this discussion of bribery. So, Shnei Dayanei Gzerus Hayu Yerushalayim. And we're going to see exactly what this means in a moment. But there were two judges of certain kinds of decrees that were in Yerushalayim, and their names were Admon and Yochanan ben Avishalom. Now, I will note that Avishalom sounds very similar to somebody who was a wicked person in the Tanakh, Avshalom. And so Tosos asks here, how could it be that somebody would be named Avshalom? And he answers that actually the name is different, Avishalom, and that there's but in the course of doing that, he also notes that when you have multiple good people that had the same name as somebody who was bad, like Menashe, so then you are allowed to use that name. But there's this idea that we don't name after people who are wicked. So that is an interesting, there are lots of customs associated with naming. Yeah, you want to tell me something? Go ahead, please tell me. No more Channel 11 news. Okay, well, that's news to me. So okay, so we will. So the point is that we have to be careful about the names that we choose. So all right, Hanan Omer. So what did Shnei Dvarim? Hanan ruled two rulings. Admon Omer Shiva, and Admon had 7 rulings. And so we're going to begin with the first of the rulings, and we will see that this one absolutely does have to do with our topic. So Misha Halach Medina Siyam. If a husband goes overseas, the Ishto Tovas Mazonos, and now the husband wants to claim food, right? The wife, thank you. The wife wants to claim food. The husband did not leave any food for his wife. Maybe it was a Russia business trip, and so now she needs to get food out of the checking account in order to pay for food. And so the Hanan says that so she only swears later on at the end. So we're going to give her the food right away now. And the key is that at the end, at some point, if she were to ever claim her ketubah, if they were to get divorced or if he were to pass away, so then she would swear at the end that there was no money left over and that she is still entitled to her ketubah. Below Tisha B'Av b'tchila, but she would not swear at the end, right? So Rashi, we'll do Rashi here for you. So Tishva B'Sof Kishiyishma'u Bo Shemes, when it's heard that when the husband had died, the Tavo L'Gvot Ketubata, and she goes to claim her Ketuba. This is the top of Kuf Hey Amud Aleph. So Tishva Shelo Ichbal Biyada Mishel Ba'ala Klum. She has to swear that she doesn't have anything that belongs to the husband. The meaning because she was just given all the money for the food, so she has to swear. So but she doesn't have to make that oath at the beginning when we're giving her food. She doesn't have to say, I don't have anything that belongs to my husband now, because we're just going to take care of her and make sure that she has food to eat. Okay. However, the children of the Kohen Gedolim all disagreed with Hanan and said, no, she has to make that same oath at the beginning and the end. Amar Rabbi Dosa ben Horkanus kedivreihem. And Rabbi Yodosa ben Horkanus said like their words, but Amar Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai Yafa Amar Hanan. I think that Hanan spoke correctly. Lo tishava el b'sof. She only swears at the end. So now we're going to begin not by talking about the substantive aspect of this Mishnah, but the introduction. So Uraminhu, right? So in our introduction, we referenced two judges, two special judges. And now we're going to say that there's another brisa that references three judges. Shlosha Dayanim. There were three judges of thefts. Admon ben Gadai, V'chanan HaMitzri, V'chanan ben Avishalom. So we had Admon. That's that he was referenced in. Now he's given a full name, Admon ben Gadai, but Admon is mentioned, and Chanan ben Avishalom is mentioned. But we have a third character here, Chanan ben Chanan HaMitzri. So Kasha Tlas Atrain. So we have a question because one brisa references three of these special judges, and the other one mentions two. And Kashi Gzeros Agzelos. We have one that references Gzeros and one that references Gzelos. Now, of course, you might think, as I thought, that, well, of course there's a difference because one is Gzeros, and so for the Gzeros, there are two judges, and for the Gzelos, there are three judges. So maybe that's what's going on. But Tosa says, so you can take a look at the top Tosas. If you say that those are two different things, so tlasa atre lo kasha, then you won't even have any question about two and three, because one is talking about one category and another is talking about another category. So the Tosas answers that actually, given the number of different judges that we'll see in a moment, if we're talking about a special category of judges that have some kind of specialty, we're not going to have a judge with multiple specialties. We have enough judges. We're going to see how many judges there were in Yerushalayim at the time in a moment, that there were literally hundreds of judges. And yet, and so we would not want to attribute multiple specialties. And indeed, the idea that Tosfos highlights is that if you have obviously, you need to have a breadth of knowledge in order to be a judge in the first place. But if you have the opportunity to go to a specialist who specializes in this particular halacha, so then that there's an idea of spending the time to become a specialist. So and we're not, and given the fact that we may not want actually one person to be a specialist in multiple things, because that will diminish their ability. And it's just like when you go to a doctor, you want to go to a specialist so that they can take proper care for you. So we have this question of two or three. Was it two or was it three? So Bishlam Atlasa train low kasha. So we can actually resolve the question about two or three by noting the following: because we can say that the ones that were important were taught here. Now, Tosfos points out that, one second, if you're saying that it's the ones that are important, usually you would list the ones that are more important first, And so that would suggest that Adman and Hanan HaMitzri are more important than Hanan ben Avi Shalom. But in our Mishnah, we listed Hanan ben Avi Shalom first. So two answers to that. So one is that actually when we say the list of various people at our Pesach Seder, the last one that we list, we say Masa for Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Elazar, Ben Azariah, Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva is the last one, and yet he is the most important. And so as a result, it doesn't have to be that the order is so important. And so maybe even though Hanan HaMitzri is sort of in the middle, which would mean that you would think no matter what, he should be more important than somebody, whether you're listing from least important to most important or most important to least important, he's going to be more important than somebody. But we're going to say that it doesn't have to be the same order of importance. So that's possible answer number one. And then the second thing is that it could be that when we say chashiv, we're not talking about chashiv in the sense of personal importance. But the question is importance for the topic that we're talking about now, meaning who taught rules that related to Ketubot. And so to the extent that Hanan HaMitzri may not have taught a specific teaching associated with Ketubot, so as a result, he would not necessarily be listed in our Mishnah. Okay, but but we still end up with a question about Gzeros and Gzelos. So what is the story with that? So Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Shahayu Gozrin Gzeros al Gzelos. The point is that these were the people who would decree decrees in connection with theft. And so what does that mean? Kidatanya, we have an example in a brisa. Kitma Nitia, if you have a young a natia, a young plant that kitma, its top was cut off. So here we're talking about animals doing damage to somebody else's property. Rabbi Yossi Omer Gozre Gezerus Yerushalayim Omrim. So Rabbi Yossi taught that those who issued these decrees in Yerushalayim, they said Natia bas shnasa shtei kesef bas shtei shnanim arba kesef. That we're not going to try to evaluate the actual value of the tree that gets knocked down. So, but rather we are just going to give a fixed value because it's just too much work, effectively, or too, it'll simplify the judicial system, especially if we are seeing this kind of piece on a regular basis, that we don't have to try to rework how much the value of the tree was, but we just know that that's what it is. So given the fact that they issued certain zeros in connection with zeros, now of course it's not really theft, but it's indirectly, it's damage that you would do to somebody. It's destruction. So there's an aspect to taking something that doesn't belong to them. So again, so now our Mishnah and our Brisa reference 2 judges or 3 judges, but we have a different list of judges that includes somebody else. So Urminhu, Shalom Shadayani Gzeros Hayu Birushalayim, Admon, so we got that Admon name, that was the same. L'Chana, we got the Chana name, that's the same as we had in our Mishnah. Nachum, well, one second, we didn't have Nachum either in our Mishnah or our Brisa. So Amar of Papa, my Tana Nachum, who is it that taught this particular judge named Nachum? Rabbi Nassan. It was Rabbi Nassan. Rabbi Nassan thought that from a historical perspective, in thinking about who were different judges, that Nachum wasn't one of these judges. Rabbi Nassan Titania, because we have a brisa. Rabbi Nassan Omer Af Nachum Hamadi goes to Gezeras Shibrushalaim Haya. Nachum Hamadi was also one of these judges who decreed decrees. The lo hodu lo, but the Chachamim disagreed with him and said that that's not the case. All right, so now that we've resolved the 2 and the 3 and then why they're called the particular judges, the Suleka, one second.
Question?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so the sages didn't agree with Rabbi Natan's opinion or Rabbi Nachum Hamadi's?
No, with Rabbi Natan's opinion that Nachum was included among the judges. So therefore, in our Mishnah, it is reflecting the Chachamim's viewpoint that there were only 2 such judges.
Got it.
Or there could have been 3 such judges, but we're only quoting the 2 that are relevant for our topic. It's interesting that you could have answered, well, the same answer. You could have said that we're talking about, in our Mishnah, we're talking about the 2 that are relevant. But then we would still have a debate between the brisa, the 2 brightot, and so then we would need to resolve that. So at least from that perspective, we need to indicate that there were multiple opinions. The Suleka, is it really possible that there weren't more than these 3 special judges? Amar Rabbi Pinchas, Amar Rabbi Yoshia, Shlosh Meo V'Tishim, V'Arba there were 394 courts in Yerushalayim. Kenegden Bati Knesios, Kenegden Bati Midrashos, Kenegden Bati Sofrin, and they had a similar number of synagogues, shuls, and beit midrash, and schools and yeshivot. So that seems to suggest that there would be way more than 3. So Dayanan Tuvahava. So the Gemara answers, yes, there were lots of judges. But these judges were specifically gozrei gzeros. So these were the specific ones that that had this number of judges. So having now mentioned these gozrei gzeros, so we're going to the Gemara is now going to discuss how they got paid. Because apparently this may have been like a full-time job for them. And so since it was a full-time job, they needed to be paid. And of course, once we talk about payment for judges, that's going to lead us to the discussion of bribery. So I'll review. Yes, go ahead.
So these 2 judges that were in the Mishnah, I don't recall seeing them elsewhere. They don't get quoted a lot in the Tanaitic.
No, I don't think they get quoted a lot at all. But I think that is because this is, pre-Talmudic and Mishnaic era. And so this is probably a very early, that would be my understanding, that this is probably very early period that they come from, but I'm not 100% sure as to the reason, but that would be my expectation. Indeed, they're not called Rebbe, they're not called, the traditional language that would be used for a Tana and Mishnah. So it's interesting from that perspective. So my guess is that they are probably early, and that's why. And so as a result, most of the people that we quote are later generations. So indeed, most of them. Yeah. Okay. So let's start with that. Okay. So. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav Asi goes to Gezeres Yerushalayim Hanoplin Skaran Tisha V'Teisha Mana Mitrumas Halishka. They would get 99 mana from the half shekels that were in the Trumas Halishka in the room where all the half shekels from the Jewish people were put. This highlights, of course, this is talking about pre the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. Lo ratzu mosifin lahem. And if they didn't want that amount, so then we would give them more. So that doesn't make any sense. Lo ratzu. If they didn't want this, they would give them more. Atu bereshiyeh askinan. Are we talking about wicked people? Meaning, is it that they just, didn't want to, they felt that was too little for them? That doesn't make any sense. Ella lo safku. The meaning when we say that they didn't want it, meaning it didn't satisfy their needs in order to feed them. So maybe they had large families. So afal pisha lo ratzu, even though they might not have wanted to take more, mosifin aleihem, we are going to force them to take more. Meaning we want to make sure that these judges are not forced to accept, to have to go begging and to potentially accept bribes. And now Rabbeinu Tam and Tosos here asked the question, or is going to answer the question. We're about to talk about how judges should not get paid. So how is it that they're getting paid? And so the answer that Rabbeinu Tam is that one is that they only prohibited the payment from the Balei Dinim themselves, from the people who are being judged. And then another potential answer is that these people were full-time, and so full-time could be treated differently as well. So Karna Havishakel is Tira Mizakai is Tira Machai. So Karna was a judge, and he used to take a payment from both the litigants. He would take from the plaintiff and the defendant. He would take, a coin. He would take equal amounts so that he wouldn't be bribed by either. But now we're going to ask the question, so having just talked about how the judges get paid, so we see that Karna got paid in this manner, that he took a coin from each of the daim lahudina, and then he would judge them. So so how did he do this? You can't take a bribe. Now, now maybe you'll say that a bribe only exists when you don't take it from both of them. So Dilma Asul because then maybe the person will come and mess things up and actually issue the wrong ruling. So Karna came into Shakam and Tarbayo lo asilat sluyadina, and that really Karna was doing the right thing or a fine thing because he was taking from both, and so as a result he had no incentive to mess up the judgment because he was getting from both of the sides. But the problem with that is, do we allow accepting a bribe even if it's to not, even if the bribe is to not issue a false ruling? Tanya, when we have in the Torah, it says don't take a bribe. So matam malomer, what does that teach us? And this is a brisa that we're quoting. Right? If in fact it's to tell us that we don't want to actually say that the person who should be obligated to pay is not obligated to pay, and the person who's not obligated to pay is obligated to pay. So then, we already have a pasuk that says you're not allowed to pervert justice. You're not allowed to change what the law should be. But so you can't even take a bribe to do the right thing. So Amra Torah b'shocha loso sikach, because and so what and how do I know that? Because the Torah not only says that you can't pervert justice, but you also can't even take a bribe. You can't even take a bribe in order to do justice. Okay, so if you take a bribe, you can't judge. So if you take a present from somebody, we're going to get some stories. We're going to end today with 5 stories. There's actually 6 stories, but the 6th story will continue tomorrow, and we'll hear that story tomorrow. 5 stories of judges who said, you know what, you gave me something, now I can't be a judge in your case. So let's see so we're going to get there in a moment. So Hani Mili, Heicha Deshakel, V'Torah Shocha. Now maybe you could say that when is it a problem? It's a problem when he takes the money as a bribe. But Karna V'Torah's Agra Havashakel. But Karna was taking it as a fee. And maybe there's a difference between the two. V'Torah's Agra Mishari, but the Gemara asks, 1 second, do we allow it even if it's taken as a fee? V'Hatanan, we have a ruling in a Mishnah. This is a Mishnah in Bechoros. Hanotel Sachar Ladun Zinav B'Telin. That if you get paid to be a judge, your judging is nullified. So you are not, your case gets thrown out. We don't even listen to your ruling. So Hani Mili Agardina. Well, maybe that's talking about a fee for deciding the law. But Karna Agar B'Telu Havashaka. Karna wasn't getting paid in order to judge. He was getting paid because he had another job. He had a job, and we're going to see what the job was in a moment. He had another job. And when you are a judge and you're judging a case, you can't do your other job. And so as a result, he was being paid. Exactly, he was being paid in order to avoid to not do his judge. Well, second, but Agar B'Telem Mishari, but do we allow it even in order to allow the person to not do their job? Tanya, Mechoer Hadayan Shenotel Sachar Ladun. We say that it's actually despicable. It's disgusting to have the judge take payment to judge. Elishadino did, but this judge's judgment is valid. Well, now, Hechidami, how could we say that this brisa is talking about? Because Ilema Agardina, if you say that it's a fee for actually deciding the law, Well, we just learned that a fee for deciding the law of the judgment is nullified. So, and here we're saying that the judge decision is valid, but it's just disgusting. So, Dino Din. We just saw the other brisa said that it's the Mishnah even in Bechorah says that it's not even a good judgment. So Ella Agar Batel. So it must be that the payment here is for not working. And yet we see the Katani Mechor Adayan, and we see that it's not appropriate. And so in that situation, if it's not appropriate, so how could it be? We have one case where Karna is taking some kind of payment, and presumably was a good judge. You don't want to say that he was a bad judge. And a second situation where we say that the payment is disgusting, is despicable. So what's the case? So Hani Mili Betela de Lomocha. So when we say that it's despicable, it's if the judge's other position is not known. So meaning if the judge doesn't have a public position for which he's getting paid, and then it looks like, even though maybe he's getting paid for not doing what he ordinarily does, but he doesn't do it publicly. So as a result, nobody knows that he's actually, it's okay for him to take this payment. So Karna Betela de Mocha, but Karna was getting paid to not do a job that everybody knew that it was his job. Because he was a wine connoisseur, and he would be able to smell when the wine was about to sour. So as a result, which is a very important job, because if you have two vats of wine, maybe they're made the same day, but for whatever reason, one of that's is going to spoil sooner, you want to make sure that you sell that vat first. So he was in very big demand. So as a result, they could give him the money because everybody knew that when he was judging, he was not doing his other job. And Kihad Ravuna, and Ravuna had a similar experience. Kihaba Asidina Likame, because when people would come to be judged by him, what would they say? What would he say to them? Amrlahu, he would say to them, Habuli Gabra Dalili Vicharikai. I need somebody to irrigate my field. So get me somebody to draw water for me, and then I can judge your case. But I have my own farm my own field that I'm planting. I need to be able to make money. So the and if you do that, well, then I'll judge for you. So that's the idea. Meaning they could either find them as a person to do it, or more likely they could give him a little bit of money, and that way he'd be able to take the thing. But it seems that the key is that you would want to make sure that you split that payment between the two litigants. So so the bottom line is if in fact you take a payment in order to favor somebody, so then you violated the concept of not perverting or justice. If you take a payment in order to do the right judgment, but it's still a bribe, meaning you're taking a payment from one litigant, so then you're accepting a bribe. That's going to be a problem. And in both those cases, and if you take a fee for just being the judge, so as we initially thought, in all three of those cases, the ruling of the court is null and void. We're going to throw it out. The fourth case is if, in fact, the both litigants pay each, or they're paying for the judges in order so the judge not do his other job, but the judge's job is not public. So then that's just disgusting, but it's not illegal, and we're going to allow the judgment to take place. And the final case is where the judge has another job, and it's known what the judge's job is, and so then that would be totally fine. Okay, so Amar Rebbe Abahu, so Bo or A Kamas Muyos Einehen Shel Makabel Shoka. Look at C how blind people are who accept the judges, because Adam Chash Be'ena. If you have somebody who's worried about who's blind, they will give any amount of money to a judge, to a doctor, Suffolk misrape, Suffolk and misrape, even though it's not clear that the doctor, especially back then, that the doctor will be able to cure them. But they will go from specialist to specialist to try and be able to see. And yet, somebody who takes a bribe is essentially somebody who's accepting money to become blinded. Because the bribe blinds those who see. And apparently, this pasuk, which is from Shmos, is being taken very literally. That in fact they will be literally become blind. So Tana Rabbanan. So now another brisa along with this idea of blinding. Ki hashochet yaver einei chachamim kal v'chomer l'tipshin. That if a bribe blinds somebody who's wise, well then certainly it will blind somebody who is foolish. And it causes the people who are righteous to have their words changed, meaning they change from good to bad. So certainly it will cause wicked people. So now Gemara now asks me, Tipshin Rishayim B'nai Dina. No. 1 second. How do you get to foolish and wicked people deciding the law? Now, they could have just answered, well, we're talking about not Jewish courts, or we're talking about, Stone Mora, but Elahakikamer. So, but rather than do that, we're going to focus on the Jewish people and say the following: Ki hashochet yaver einei chachamim min afilu chacham gadol v'lokeach shochad eno niftar min ha'olam below samiyos halev. That if a wise person takes a bribe, he's going to not leave this world. By the time he leaves this world, he will end up as somebody who is blind in the heart, meaning that he'll make foolish decisions. So the Yisalak Devrei Tzadikim, and it messes up the words of the Tzadikim. So Afilu Tzadik Gomer the Lokeach Shochet, even if somebody is fully righteous, if he takes a bribe, Enu Niftar Min Ha'olam below Teir of Das. By the end of his life, he will be blind in his mind. He will do things that are not good. And so as a result, he will end up becoming wicked. And so the understanding is not that when we say Kal V'chomer L'Rishayim, it's because the person is in the process of becoming a Rasha, because the person Kal V'chomer L'Tipshin, because the person is in the process of becoming a Tipesh. So so Kiyasa Rav Dimi Amar. So when Rav Dimi came from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael, Dorish Rav Nachman Bar Kohen my dixiv melech b'mishpat yamid oretz v'ish trumos yarsenu, that a king through judgment upholds the world, but a man of gifts through trumot, the man who accepts truma, overthrows it. So im domed dayan lemelech she'enu tzarech l'klum, if a judge is like a king who has everything that a king needs, so then yamid oretz, then he is going to be upholding the world because he is judging appropriately. But if in fact, on the other hand, he is like a Kohen who goes around to the different granaries in order to get paid his Kohen fee, so then then he's going to overthrow the world, and that will be bad. So Amar Rabba Bar Rav Shila, Hi Dayana Dishoel Shilata. So a judge who borrows things, hustle and dina, then he's disqualified to decide the law because he's borrowed. So if I borrow something from you, and now you come to me to be judged, I may be influenced by the fact. But we say this, and presumably maybe it's even true. Even if it's not you that comes to me, but James who comes to me, because I'm the person who goes around, and so there's the assumption that maybe next time I'll go to borrow from James. So but that assumes that he doesn't have things to lend as well, because if in fact, so then he's part of the community. So about but we're not going to be so strict about a judge's borrowing if in fact he is part of the community and lends also. If he's a lender and a borrower, so then we're going to consider him part of the community, and that will be okay. Well, 1 second, Aini, is this really true? Rava she'il she'ilta midivei bar Marion. Rava used to borrow things from the house of Bar Marion. Avagad delo shaila minei, even though they didn't borrow from him. So, and yet he was a judge for them. So Hasam Achashuvinu who divide. There he borrowed from them, not in order to take benefit from them, but rather he wanted to impart to them some level of importance. And so as a result, he wasn't doing it for himself, he was doing it for them. Interesting. I'm not sure that really gets us to a place where we're comfortable.
But it was a little disparaging. I thought that one sentence about the Kohen who goes around collecting truma from the granaries and overthrows it.
Yeah, yes.
That could be interpreted. That's not
Well,
exactly
obviously, yes, exactly. Not a flash, a flattering statement about Kohanim, but obviously the pasuk is being interpreted in connection with judges. But you're absolutely right that it's not a particularly flattering statement about Kohanim. Yeah. So okay, so Amar Rabba, my time of shufta. So what is the problem with accepting a bribe, especially a bribe, as we saw earlier, a bribe to do the judgment correctly? So kaven de kabal a shufta mine, because once you accept a bribe from somebody, ikarva le daite legabe, you feel close to that person. V'habi kagufe, and it'll be like yourself. V'ain adam roacho v'latzmo, and a person doesn't see their own negative things. They don't see their own deficiencies. So my shokad, and in fact, you can see that in the word shokad, because what does the word shokad really symbolize? Shehuchad, that you are one. It is one person. So as a result, when I pay a bribe to somebody, I am becoming that person is going to view me as if I am part of them. And so now we're going to have a teaching based on this. So Amara Papa lowly dun inishtina derachimle, that a person shouldn't judge somebody that they like. Velolaman desunile, and you shouldn't judge somebody that you don't like. Derachimle lo chazi lechova, because you're not going to see anything good, anything bad in the person that you like. V'desunile lo chazi lezuchusa, and you're not going to see anything good in the person that you don't like. So Amar Abaye, Hi Tsurba Mirabanan de Mirachamin Le B'nei Masa. And I should note that the note here points out that the Mishnah in Sanhedrin defines a friend or an enemy. A friend is somebody who you would choose to be your groomsman, your best man, and a enemy is somebody that you would refuse to talk to for 3 days because and so that's those are out because you're angry with them, not because you don't see them. And so those are the definitions, but it gives a biblical source for a judge not being allowed to judge these people. Here, we're not going to give a biblical source. And so the understanding is that here we're talking about a level beneath this. And so Tosfos explains that this is, I believe, that it's not just here. We're really talking about a level of liking that doesn't necessarily reach that you would make him a groomsman, and a level of disliking that wouldn't reach the level of somebody that you would not want to talk to. And so, so it's not that this is a requirement that you not judge a Torah requirement, but rather it's just a stringency that the rabbis created in order to prevent any kind of bad appearance. So Amar Abaye, Hai Tzurbad Mirabanan, the Mirachamin Le B'nei Masa. So if you have a rabbinic scholar who's liked by the people of his town, so La Mishum Demale Tfei, it's not because he's such a great person. Ela Mishum Delo Muchach Lahu B'mile D'Shemayim, but he's not actually pushing them hard enough. He's not rebuking them hard enough, and so as a result, you don't want to. I would say if you are trying to please everyone as a rabbi, that you're not being a good rabbi. So Amar Abaye, okay. So Amar Rava, Meireish Hava Amina Hani B'nei Mechoza Kulo Rachamali. I initially thought that everybody in Mechoza liked me, but Kavan Dahavi Dayana. But once I became their judge, Amina Minayu. Suddenly, I figured that some of them are going to hate me and some of them are going to like me because the ones that I rule in favor of, they're gonna like me, and the ones I rule against are gonna hate me. But but then I realized, but you know what? If I judge honestly, the person who comes before me today as the person who's chayiv may come before me the next day and be the one who's zakai, and the one who wins. So as a result, so if they are going to like me, then they'll like me. If they're not going to like me, then they're not going to like me. So bottom line is that you can have either category. So now we're going to get the list of 6 examples of bribes. We're going to do 5 of them today, and we'll hold the 6th one because it will carry over into tomorrow. So Taner Rabbanan, the shokad lo sika, don't take a bribe. Eino tzarach lamar shokad mamon. This is not just to say a bribe of money. Ela afilu shokad dvarim nami. Even just words can constitute a bribe. Miduloksiv betzalotikach. It's because it didn't say money don't take. It's shokad. It's the more broader term of a bribe, which could constitute any kind of compensation. So so what's an example of a bribe of words? So Shmuel was crossing a bridge. Asahu Gavra, a certain person came in Yahiv Le Yade, and he gave him a hand. He said, let me help you up onto the bridge. So Amrle, so Shmuel said to him, what are you doing here? And he said, Amrle, Dina Isli, I've got a court case. Amrle, Pasil Nalach Ladina, I can't be your judge. Exactly. I've been disqualified because you gave me a hand up onto the bridge. So Amemar Hava Yasib Kada and Dina. So Amemar was also judging. Case number 2. Parach Ged Gadva Areshe, and a feather flew onto his head. Right? You can imagine a leaf. Now we're in the fall. A leaf fell onto his head, or in this case, a feather fell onto his Asahu Gabra Shukli, and a person took it off his head because nobody wants to walk around with a feather on their head. And so Amrle, Mayavitek, what you doing here? So Amrle, Dina Isli, Amrle, Pasilna Lach Bladina, I can't judge for you. So third case, Mar Ukva Havashadi Ruka Kame. Mar Ukva had some spit that was in front of him. Asahu Gavra Kasye. And so somebody came and covered it up. He put some paper towels down so that he wouldn't step on the spit. So Amrle, Mayavitik, what you doing here? So Amrle, Dina Isli, I've got a court case. So Amrle, Pisilna Lach Ladina. Nope, sorry, I can't judge for you because you did something nice for me. Case number 4, Rabbi Yishmael Rabbi Yosi have a rugel arise to have a maisi le kol male shabza kantuk depire. So he Rabbi Yishmael, the son of Rabbi Yosi, had a field, and the field was handled by a sharecropper. And every Friday, the sharecropper would come and bring him fruit from the field as his payment. So this is money that he was entitled to. Yom Echad Aitile B'cham Shabbat. But one time he came on Thursday. Now, of course, Thursday in those days was the market day, which was also the day of judgment and at court, and also the day that we read the Torah, and all those things ended up being connected. So in any event, so Amar Le, Rabbi Shmuel said to him, Ma'ishna ha'idna, why? What's the difference for today? So Amar Le, Dina Islay, I got a court case, and so I had to come to town anyway. So I figured I'd come to town, and save myself a trip tomorrow. So Amina Agav Urche, Lamar, and I figured that once I'm coming, I might as well bring you your fruit. So lo kabamine, Rabbi Yishmael refused to accept it. Amar Le, and he said to him, Pasilna lach ladina, I can't even judge you. I'm not going to accept it, and I can't even judge you because I'm worried that just even the acceptance could be constituted. Because of course, the guy in the difference between the first 3 cases and this case is that in the first 3 cases, the good was done before he learned that he was a litigant. Here, he learns that he's a litigant before the good happens. So he has the ability to refuse it. So as a result, and he has to refuse it because otherwise it's like he accepted a bribe. So Osif Zuzu the Rabbanan. So he set up another group of rabbis, the Kadainin like, and they began to try the case. And so Rabbi Shmuel happened to be walking back and forth. Amar, oh, he should make this argument. He should make this argument. So Amar, Tepach Nafsham Shel Makable Shochad. So, and so as a result of him realizing that he was making all these arguments on behalf of the person who hadn't even given him any bribe, he says, that the souls of those who accept bribes should suffer in agony because Uma ani shalom natalti. I didn't even take anything. V'im natalti shalom natalti. Shalim natalti. And if I did take, I would have taken something that really belonged to me. Meaning, this is my payment for his being in my field. I wasn't getting anything extra. The only thing extra that I was getting was the fact that he was giving it to me today instead of tomorrow. So, so much more so should somebody who accepts a bribe. So the fifth and final example that we'll give today is Rabbi Yishmael bar Elisha, Aiti Leili Hahu Gabra Reish Tzakat. So there was a certain person who brought Rabbi Yishmael bar Elisha the first of the cuttings of the shearings of the animals, the wool. So Amar Lei, so Rabbi Yishmael bar Elisha asked him, Mehechat, where are you coming from? Amar Lei, Miduch Plan, I came from this place. V'hasam lahacha lo hava kohen l'meisrolei. It's like you didn't have any kind of kohen that you could have given between there and here. Meaning it's nice that you're giving your first shearing to me, but you couldn't give it to any kohen. So Amar Lei, Dina Isli, I have a court case. So Amina Agav Orchai, I to Lamar. And I figured, by the way, I'll go and give it to you while I'm doing it. So Amar Lei, so Rabbi Shmuel said back to him, I can't be your judge any longer. The low kabbalah, and as a result, he didn't accept the payment. So Osav lay Zuga de Rabbanan. So instead, he appointed some other rabbis, the Kadainile, and they began to judge him. Bahadi Ka'azo Ba'afik. He was going back and forth. Amar Ibaitain Haki, Ibaitain Haki. Oh, he should make this argument, he should make that argument. So Amar. So again, same kind of story. And indeed, it's interesting that both stories involve a Rabbi Yishmael. One is Rabbi Yishmael, the son of Rabbi Yossi. One is Rabbi Yishmael, the son of Elisha. But in any event, so Uma Ani Shalona Talti V'imna Talti Shalina Talti Kach Mekable Shochet Alachas Kambakas. It shows that either this could be just a confusion that they're two stories with the same person, so now it got attributed to different people, or it could be that we say that the nature of a particular person is in their name, and so maybe these Yishmaels were listening to Kadosh Baruch Hu, and this was they had the same attitude as well. So tomorrow, God willing, Dove is going to cover for me. I have a bar mitzvah, God willing, tomorrow morning. So I presume that he'll be here. He will either be here in person or he will be on. Oh, the bar mitzvah is going to be on Long Island. So, and so I have some traveling to do. So tomorrow, take a look at your WhatsApp for the exact location. Dove's going to be here tomorrow. So the question is whether Dove is going to be only in person, or only on Zoom, or doing both. So we will, you have to check the WhatsApp, and that will give you that information. Have a wonderful day. That probably, no, if we're gonna have it in person, it will be here. Okay? Because now we're back here. So we won't be on the second floor except for on Shabbos. So that's the only time that we meet on the second.
Because next Tuesday and Wednesday goes to be Rosh Chodesh.
Yes, Tuesday and Wednesday will be Rosh Chodesh. We will still, I know on Wednesday we will meet here at 7:45. Have a wonderful day, everybody.
Before you go, what room are you meeting in?
We're meeting in, I think this room is 3-4. So it's a corner room on the third floor.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, if you can make it, we'd love to see you in person.
Thank
Have
you.
a good day, everybody.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you, Rabbi.